Greetings, fellow keepers and fellow Kongers. It's Soniel here with the Keeper's Corner, and we're in checking out some Zaluss the Demolisher stuff. We're going to have a look at some of the strategies, of course, to battle this guild boss event, and look at a few of the changes in the 1.92 update, because gloriously they have not been officially shared with us. However, it is most important to note that there was what I consider to be a significant nerf to the Druid, and that is that her support skills, whether it be renewal, invigor, or the group heal, healing circle, or something like that, will not cast if your party members are at 100% health across the board. And that's very important in regards to this Zaluss the Demolisher fight, because as you may know, during the 1.9 and 1.91 updates, Invigor was not only casting on whatever target you chose it to, but it was not working as intended and was actually giving a double speed boost, most especially when heroes were at max health. Although that, of course, was not working as intended with the double speed, even prior to 1.91 and 1.9, even if your party had full health, and Vigor would still cast on one of your party members, regardless of whether they had full health or not. And the targeting, of course, would prioritize whoever was missing HP, but it would still go off. That is no longer the case. So, in order for a dragon team here to be effective that uses the druid, you have to make sure that whoever you're planning to invigor is actively taking damage. And one thing you'll notice when we get into this, because of the poison resistance is available to the witch through her passive ability and things like that, she's eventually going to take less damage from the endless pain, damage over time abilities on earlier stages, maybe 1 through 8. Then she's being healed for actively by refreshing brew or rapid regeneration. So that's going to really prevent us in a lot of situations from casting Invigor on the witch. If you are familiar with some of the lower level thief teams, for example, if you're using the thief in this bottom position here, you're going to run into pretty much the same situation where he's not getting by basic attacks, and Vigor isn't casting in the same way as before, where it allowed you to permanently stun lock the boss with just that simple cheap shot stun. However, regardless of the ability to invigor witch, what we really need to focus on here is our War Master. For the high level stages, 9 and 10 specifically, it really requires a 7-star War Master to withstand those initial burst attacks from the dragon. And you're always going to really end up needing to bring resurrection and immunity potions as a failsafe if, for whatever reason, you get critical hit killed in one shot or 2 crits in a row, whatever the case may be. If something that you just can't possibly avoid happens and you end up losing one of your core heroes, the entire run is going to be pretty much thrown. So, of course, with the release of the Tier 2 equipment in the 1.9 update, the very first Dragon cycle left a lot of us using old Tier 1 equipment. That obviously has changed by now. So, of course, the premier setup for the War Master, in my opinion, of course, is using the King's Hammer here along with the Keldis Raiment. It is important to note that the Ambusher's Hacker is going to give additional cooldown reduction to the War Master himself, which will allow for more call to arms and things like that. But the overall defense rating of the King's Hammer is significantly higher than the Ambusher's Hacker. If we can find one in this mess of junk gear that we're hanging on to right now. Apparently that's the only gear I have, according to this game. Come on now. There we go. But you'll see here, of course, the Ambusher's Hacker has significantly less defense, over 100 less, just at level 67 here and not even fully enchanted. And then, of course, the Keldis Raiment as the Tier 2 Epic Chainmail. I personally feel this is the best overall Tier 2 armor, and that, of course, is because of the 600 health, the 4% dodge, and the stun and magic resistance. However, we will, have a look here at a fully maxed Dragon Scale. One thing that's really important to note about the Dragon Scale over the Keldis Raiment is that it does have 30% poison resistance, and with the most menacing ability from Zaluss really being that endless pain, damage over time poison ability, the poison resistance on the dragon scale can definitely be very viable. So if you're not level 55 or for whatever reason don't have a Keldis Rainman available, using a max level dragon scale is going to be just as efficient in a lot of situations, and sometimes will even offer more mitigation to that poison damage. However, it's important to note that you also have to worry about the Eat Your Soul and Cage of Bones and all those things. And now with the Witch here, I'm doing well, man. Just trying to get in and cover some of this dragon strategy because I've had a million people asking about it. Now, if you've seen my checklists or preparation guide on the Tower Keepers headquarters Discord, you will notice that I suggest the Wand of Swiftness for the Witch. That, of course, is a random super rare weapon that's available through the Dragon Horde event, and I'm guessing through this new dragon cycle that has the super rare instead of the epic for stage 10. And we have seen a number of those super rares appear in the guild shops, so we can cross our fingers and hope that the Wand of Swiftness will come to the guild shop eventually. And it's important to note that that Wand of Swiftness has a significant amount of cooldown reduction, which is going to increase your ability to cast Hex and Curse. We'll get into Witch's skills in just a moment here. But if you look at the other available wands, of course, the tier 2 epic here, the Greymarrow wand, is wildly expensive, but it is a tank-based wand, so to speak. It's going to have that all resistance, defense, and health. So if, for whatever reason, you decided to try and go with a defensive build wand, maybe to survive the occasional one-shots that the Witch takes until you can obtain that Wand of Swiftness, you might want to look into that or a few of the lower level options, but really any wand on her will do. And you'll see here that we're using the Code of Quickening, and that's why we mentioned the ability for her to be one-shotted by those Disintegrating Breath, Cage of Bones, any of those ranged attacks that the dragon has. But it's very important to have as much cooldown reduction or initiative on the Witch as possible because she is so naturally slow with her initiative and skill cycle. And again, in the preparation guide, you'll see that I recommend having this Code of Quickening enchanted as high as possible to help avoid those one-shot kills. But you'll see I'm using this one in particular with no enchantments at all. We'll throw a few on here with the little bit of gold we have left. Unfortunately, we burned a lot of gold and gems trying to craft some items this weekend. But in terms of why the Witch is valuable here in this boss fight, it's going to be mainly because of the two abilities that she uses, Curse and Hex. Hex is an incredibly long duration stun that when combined with Call to Arms and the stuns from the Blackguard, Death Glare, and the Soul Rend, as well as the Entangle ability from the Druid that slows the enemy cooldown, this is what's going to allow us to stun lock the boss for the most part without having to use that Thief build, which of course, as we mentioned, unless you put the Thief in the tank position, does not work as well anymore with the changes to Invigor. And then of course we have Curse, which is going to give that massive damage boost. And Refreshing Brew is also fairly valuable. This is going to help us survive endless pain cycles, the damage over time. It does kind of bite you in the ass a little bit now with the Invigor changes. Of course, it's going to have you with a capped off party more often than you'd like. It may at some point, especially in the earlier stages, be viable to drop the Refreshing Brew and possibly allow for more Invigors. But for the most part, you want to lean in the direction of survivability and healing as often as possible. And then, of course, with the passive abilities, she has the Dark Arts here, which increases that curse effect up to 85% at 7 stars, which, as Yar just mentioned here, is just a tremendous boost to that damage gain. And the secondary, you're going to want to roll with the Warding Spirits, which, of course, increases armor and resistance periodically through combat. And because the dragon uses a mix of physical and magic spells, that's going to help her survivability even with this low gear armor on, right up into the point of maybe 110 seconds into the match that she can typically survive most attacks on the earlier stage dragons. And then of course we have our core to this team, the damage dealer here, the Blackguard. Part of his value is, of course, with the tremendous strength of the Piercing Blade over the Dark Defender. But even then, the Dark Defender itself is still fairly viable, as well as the Bloodletter even. A lot of the damage that you're going to be dealing is going to be coming from that mix of Battle Fury and Curse. So while the Piercing Blade's bonus damage and armor penetration are certainly valuable, the other usable weapons for the Blackguard at lower levels and whatnot can still put in for some fairly significant damage. Now, I'm using a Strength of Legend on my Blackguard because I have gotten rid of my previous plate mails in terms of doing some new crafting and things like that. However, it's important to note that the Dread Plate has this 15% crit damage as well as the 20% magic resistance, which is going to help with not only that poison damage survivability, but also with the DPS output. But for skills, we're looking at using the Double Swing, the Death Glare, and the Vicious Strike. We don't want to run the Tendril of Shadow because, of course, we don't want that extra HP right now. We want to try and have some instances where we can put in Vigor on our Blackguard if we're able to. And, of course, the Deadliness and Find Weakness passives are both of his damage increasers. You really don't want to run the Hell's Bulwark unless you are running a lower star Blackguard or lesser armor and you find that he's dying often. You want to try and ink out every little bit of damage as possible. And you'll see here with our potions, we have the Resurrection Potion, the Rage Potion, and the Immunity Potions up. The health potions can have some value, but you're going to always want to try and roll with the Resurrection Potion. If you've been following my checklist on the TKHQ Discord, you've been completing all of the witch campaigns, so you should have a decent stack of potions. Of course, you can purchase potion packs for both. From my tablet, I use YouTube Gaming and stream right through there to my YouTube channel. But you can, of course, buy potions with gems, 5 mystery for 200. It is important to note that you'll get ripped off sometimes. You'll spend your 200 gems and get a mix of soul generation and rage potions that don't benefit you at all. If you're going to pay for potions, the huge potion pack here is usually the best bet. I know it seems a little steep, but those 70 potions tend to last quite a while, especially if you're doing the witch campaign and such regularly. But we'll go ahead and jump in really quickly and have a look at the fight itself and see how targeting priority works and things like that, how the boss cycle comes off. And you'll notice that immediately the boss is going to cast 2 skills, Eat Your Soul and Cage of Eat Your and Bones has a. So what's important to mention there is that if Cage of Bones hits your witch and stuns her, that initial next cycle is going to come up from the dragon a lot sooner because she's not casting that hex ability. You'll see that we were in fast forward as well. You want to make sure that you're always running this fight in regular speed. I have a tendency to speed it up at the end and forget to slow it back down. But absolutely, yes, you want to always lower it to ×1 speed. That's going to help you to time out your skills more effectively. Make sure that you land your stuns or shield tactics and things like that as you need them and when you need them. And you'll see here that now we're getting close to this party being topped off. The Invigor is going to drop out of the action log, which prior to this 1.92 update, it never used to do that. But we're going to see here is this first cycle of what we talked about, the Endless Pain poison ability, and you're going to want to drop your shield tactics immediately, and then right after that, you're going to want to drop your rapid regeneration. That combined is going to typically help to keep all of our party members surviving. And if you're able to here, you want to try and drop an Invigor on the Witch instead of the War Master. That's going to get her to double up on the Curse and Hex abilities during what will be your longest streak of attacks on the dragon. And once you do that, if you're able to, that's what's going to boost the Blackguard with this gear and this setup into being capable of doing 40, 50,000 damage on some of his double swings. If not, landing it on the War Master isn't a bad thing. It's going to still get you the call to arms that you need to keep the dragon locked up and keep your team functional. And then, of course, once the next Endless Pain comes in, you're going to want to try and land a few Invigors on the Blackguard as well so that you can get some additional attacks out of him. And with the changes to Invigor, that's really the name of the game here in this battle, is trying to manage your invigors properly so that the boss is not getting additional cycles. And you'll see that we'll occasionally drop the Soul Rend, and because Hex was the next ability there, the stun on him allowed Hex to go off, which stunned him again, and then Call to Arms went off, which sped our cycle up to the point that it basically stalled him out from using that Purge ability. The downside there is now Purge has fallen down into the attack cycle, so if we cast our Shield Tactics or Rapid Regeneration too soon, those abilities are going to get purged, and then more damage abilities are going to come after that. So you need to be really careful when you stun that purge away to make sure you keep an eye out for where it's going to land later in the action log. But if you do the correct cycle of your skills and stuns and whatnot, you're going to typically always end up with a situation where there's only 1 to 2 cycles of that Endless Pain, and then you're going to get 1 cycle of this abilities like Disintegrating Breath and things like that. Now, you see our Witch got one-shotted here. There's about 90 seconds left. So, if you want to use a potion, that's going to be your call. This is about 150,000 damage run so far. Reviving her will punch it up to maybe 200, 220 or so. Maybe not even that good. So in this particular instance, I'm going to just pass on using a potion. I'd rather save it for a better run. Now you'll notice, of course, when you lose the Witch, you lose that stun ability, so his damage abilities and attacks are going to start coming up again more frequently. And that's one thing you'll notice about using different heroes other than these particular core heroes with the Witch or the Thief trying to control the boss, is that when he's attacking you multiple times in a row, he's just so incredibly powerful, especially at the later stages, that you're really never going to survive. And someone did mention the use of soul skills. It's very important to note that, especially since 1.9, casting any soul skills is going to disrupt the action log. So if you keep spamming soul skills that you don't need, it's going to eventually just end up with the dragon casting more abilities sooner than he would usually, and you getting less of your regular active skills off. And of course, the bread and butter here is going to be that combination of Battle Fury, Call to Arms, Hex, Curse, and Double Swing. So we really don't want to interrupt that by using a lower damage ability like the Witch's Soul Skill, or even the Blackguard's Soul Rend. Yes, absolutely. And there are a few other things you can do. You can run the Monk in the front line with the War Master in the back and the Witch on the bottom there, and have the Monk be your source of damage. And what you can do there is Zen State will go off early, you stack your shield tactics, and eventually the is just not taking any damage from even the end soul, which is good, fairly decent. And of course, we got to look at the numbers on that last one, but we'll have another go at it here anyways. Yeah, I know, I just realized that. Now, you'll see as well, like I said, I had brought the Rage Potion along. If we happen to land in one of those situations where we're able to drop an Invigor or 2 on the Witch and double stack the Curse, that's when we want to use our Rage Potions. It's important to note that Purge can remove the bonus from a Rage Potion. So if you drop an epic Rage Potion and there's a Purge coming up, you're going to be real upset about it. So you really want to make sure you can try and anticipate how many attacks you're going to have, and whether or not you're going to be able to get an Invigor or 2 off on the Blackguard before using any Rage Potions on him. So you'll see I often bring them and don't use them, even when I have a bunch of them. Again, like I said, you want to make sure that you use them in the most ideal situation possible. And we'll drop a stun right after this break free. Sometimes, depending on how the cycle runs, again, like we saw in the last battle, if Hex is coming up next, it'll usually always flip-flop the cycles. Sometimes the second ability that you can't see is going to be Hex or Call to Arms, and that'll also do the same thing. So I tend to drop the Soul Rend right after that first break free. That's how many times that 20,000 health bar is up there. So it's on my screen right now. It's 65 times 20,000 is his total remaining HP. And because there's no attacks coming up or anything, we'll just let that purge go off. Now here, because purge just went off, if it hadn't just gone off, I would drop the invigor on the blackguard. But because we lost our call to arms and battle fury stacks, we want to throw that one onto the war master and get those things going again. We want to, of course, throw up our shield tactics before this chain of abilities comes off to try and prevent any one-shots. Yeah, if you could get Zaluss as a captured mod state, that would be pretty badass. And now here, because we're about 130 seconds left or so, we'll start dropping some invigors onto the War Master, or to the Blackguard for some bonus attacks. And again, as I said at the start of this video, that change to the Druid's abilities, in my opinion, was a massive nerf that really affects the potential damage output in these stages. Before those changes, with the double invigor, it was capable, players were capable of doing up to 500,000 damage in a solid run. And now I think the max is really going to be around 270 to 320,000 and a pretty perfect run. That can, of course, be pushed a little bit higher, depending on rage potions and druid damage and things like that. But for the most part, the average damage for a person with just about this same level of gear and stars and whatnot should be about 200,000, with very few failed runs up until Dragons 9 and 10. Later on, once you get to the more difficult dragon stages, that initial cycle of Eat Your Soul and Cage of Bones can just completely wipe you out. You can have it critical hit your War Master and kill him, and then have the second ability critical hit your Druid or Witch and kill them, which is where the immunity potions and stuff become super valuable. Yeah, the change to the super rare weapon instead of the epic weapon, I think, was unnecessary. There was some issues, of course, with the earlier rewards, and players jumping through guilds or joining guilds and then quitting to collect the first 5 or 6 rewards. So in the original Dragon Cycles, a ton of low-level players netted, 1,500 gems and some battle chests and stuff for free, which I'm sure they didn't take very well at Ninja QE. Nobody likes giving stuff away in games like this. But as you can see here, with this particular setup, it's usually fairly easy to keep this. Yes, we did get the Shakaar. We actually streamed the Shakaar campaign while it was live. And you'll see here, without getting that invigor on the Blackguard or the Witch as often as we'd like, it drops us down to about 187,000. To put it in perspective, in the 1.92 or 1.9 and 1.91 updates before this nerf to the Druid, I was averaging probably 250 to 310 on almost every run. No, there was a few 53s that were able to beat Shakaar, and unfortunately what I believe was a handful of cheaters or hackers, because I've seen them in a number of lower level players' towers as well. But yeah, there were some people that didn't have the tier 2 equipment and whatnot who were able to defeat him. But for the sake of it, we'll have a couple goes and try some other stuff. We'll see if we can't put in a decent damage run with the Monk here. Of course, I haven't experimented too much with the other various builds since the 1.92 update, but we will go with the mix here of the Kai Strike, the Kai Shout, the Zen State, the attack and defense boost, and the armor rating. Shakaar is the stage 5 boss. About 3 weeks ago, maybe a little longer, there was a revenge campaign for chapter 5 where the final stage on Extreme rewarded Shakaar as a captured monster. There are also 4 other revenge campaigns, one for each of the first 4 campaign sessions, and each one of them rewarded the final boss as a captured monster. So there was Korgan, Marul, Krognor, whatever his name was, and Rak, the Overlord. Which number of players in the Tower Keepers Discord revenge campaigns turned, but a number of people weren't able to look at. Now, without the active call to arms being invigorated and all that stuff with the War Master, this may not be as viable as it used to be. Again, a lot has changed with the changes to Invigor. So we'll hope that the team here can survive in the backline through these attacks that are going to be coming at us with those fewer call to arms casts. After this, maybe we'll have a run with the Valkyrie or a few other things and see if there aren't any decent setups that people haven't used. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, it's, unfortunately my upload speed here at home is absolutely terrible. I've been trying to get that changed, but I pay for 100 megs down and I get like 6.5 megs up. Although so far this team doesn't seem to be running too poorly. We'll drop another Invigor on the Witch here now that we're able to. And it is important to note that because of his passives and whatnot, if you have some fairly decent gear for the Monk, he's going to be fairly survivable for you. And that ability to stack the Zen State and Shield Tactics percent-based defense boosts is certainly going to help with his survivability. And while he won't pull off the same massive hits that the Blackguard is capable of, at least previously for the first 8 stages or so, this team can be fairly more consistent if you do not have a War Master that can survive very easily. However, we see that he still got himself killed there with that double crit, so we'll go ahead and pop a revive on him. It'll probably be a couple days before we kill him off completely. And it's also important to note that this event is going to be running for a total of 10 days. So while coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we will very likely have a gold sale because the sale last week was on gems. The event will run through the following weekend when the gem sale returns. So if you are a player who, does spend all your gems on towers or craftsman packs or whatever, and you wanted to be able to get some extra attacks in on the dragon, you don't want to really spend any money on gems and things like that until after that gem sale comes back up next Friday. And that's usually going to be when a lot of guilds either finish him off who haven't. I do think that this cycle is going to bring a number of additional guilds finishing the entire 10 stages, whereas in the first 2 cycles, or actually only in the first cycle, the Elysium and Awesome Sauce guilds were able to clear the 10 stages for the epic weapon, and then the second cycle was inadvertent, according to Ninja Kiwi, and was removed after 3 or 4 days. But I do think, again, like I said, with this full cycle, that we'll see at least 4 or 5 of the top guilds be able to complete all 10 stages here. He just loves beating on that witch, so it's my own fault for not casting shield tactics and whatnot. To be honest, I'm a little beat up. Oh yeah, and if you drop the rage potions on the Monk, because his single crits are so big, he'll end up getting huge damage hits. I've seen crits up to 30 to 40k with the Monk builds. But we're going to speed this up and let these guys die off. And I want to try one with the Valkyrie just for old time's sake. Greetings, Sir Flannel. In fact, you know, since we've had a few people jump in here that didn't see the... Oh, stop while it's loading. There we go. But actually, since we have a few people that jumped in and didn't get to see the first few battles, we'll go on one more with the Blackguard team. So, Flannel, I see that you're similarly. You know, put yourself in time speed, which we covered a minute ago here. You want to make sure that you're dumping invigors onto your War Master as often as possible, and trying to drop some onto the Witch when you can. You'll see that the Cage of Bones, if it lands on your Witch and stuns her, that's going to be pretty much a game over for her. Because she's not going to cast that early Hex to stop the first cycle, you're going to get hit by Endless Pain right away, and she's going to already be at low HP. So you're going to end up having to revive her or try and just tank through that first early cycle. But if you hit it just right, you should end up in a situation... That's awesome. Too bad it wasn't 6 Void Cores. But if you end up in a cycle where you get that early Endless Pain, that's why we tend to bring these Revive and Immunity Potions to bail ourselves out. And then you'll see here we've got the Endless Pain Eat Your Soul cycle coming up right here. We're going to drop our Shield Tactics to lower the poison damage from Endless Pain. We're going to drop our Rapid Regen immediately after, which is going to help us to survive through those 15 damage ticks. And as you can see, the poison is doing less than the rapid regen is healing for, so that forces us with the new mechanics to drop our Invigor on the War Master again. If we were able to, like I had said previously, we want to try and make sure that we drop that Invigor onto the Witch right there, because that's what's going to give us our big damage boost to the Blackguard. But we're going to go ahead and drop this Invigor here on the Blackguard so that he can get a few attack cycles in, although it's not as boosted as we would like, which would ideally be 2 stacks of Battle Fury and 2 stacks of Curse, which is going to be what allows for those 20 to 40 to 50,000 damage double swings. You're still going to be able to put in some fairly decent 15 to 25, 30,000 hits when using the Piercing Blade and a 7-star Blackguard. Now, because we dropped the last one on the, well, it's not going to matter with Purge coming up, but typically when you drop a Invigor on the Blackguard, you usually want to make sure you put the next one onto the War Master or the Witch, or it's going to cause a massive cycle from the boss to show up on you. Again, the name of the game is trying to keep the boss stunned and keep your guys' cooldown reduction boosted and his lowered through Entangle and things like that. And it's always the moment of truth when this Disintegrating Breath comes up, whether it's going to one-shot the Druid or the Witch. And this is, of course, only stage 7, so when you get up to 8, 9, and 10, the likelihood that that shot takes out one of those backline heroes becomes much, much higher. And that's when you really start to burn through a ton of resurrection and immunity potions and things like that. And you start to end up with failed runs where maybe 1 or even 2 out of your 3 battles you get wiped in 100 seconds, and you end up only putting in 50 or 100,000 damage with top-end heroes and top-end gear. And if you are a lower level player, it's going to become really difficult at that point to really do much at all. Now, this may be a War Master death in a place where we don't want to revive him, but he dodged like a champ. And that's one of the things I really love about that Tier 2 chainmail, is it does have that little bit of dodge percentage, which, while it doesn't seem like very much, you get a lot more dodges out of it than you'd expect. And previously, dodging the first abilities meant like almost a guaranteed 350,000 damage run because of the double and vigor mechanics. Now, dodging can actually hurt you more than it can help you early in the match, because if you dodge both attacks and end up with full health, you don't get any invigor casts early, so that you're not going to get any boost to call to arms and things like that. And you'll see when he breaks free, he drops all of the debuffs off of him, so that armor debuff from Vicious Strike and Curse and that kind of stuff, and Tangle as well, that all comes off every time he breaks free. So sometimes you'll see Break Free come up on its own with no attack abilities, and while you're not getting hurt defensively from that, it's going to lower your damage output quite a bit. But you'll see here it's, about 240,000 damage between the Druid and the Blackguard. So, of course, this is, in my opinion, and at this point, I'm guessing many other players, the absolute best setup to use for the guild boss. If you haven't ever seen the checklists that I put up or the original strategy guide I put up, you can find them in the Tower Keepers headquarters Discord. If you're a Kong player watching this, all you have to do is Google TKHQ Discord or Tower Keepers Discord, and you can find an infinite invite link to get in there and have a look at those things. And we'll try and make sure we get those checklists and whatnot posted on the Keeper's Corner channel as well. We will try one more, like I said, with the Valkyrie, just for old time's sake. When the boss was first launched, and a ton of these, you can agree, because I was under pressure to be one of the best damage dealers. And unfortunately, we only have one Tier 2 chainmail at the moment, so we're going to end up putting the Tier 2 onto her, and the Tier 1 is going to go onto the War Master. And for her abilities, we're going to be running with the Shield of Wrath. Yes. I've been gemming the attacks since probably about 6 o'clock when the dragon launched. Another thing you'll notice if you read that checklist that I put up is that you want to be stockpiling as many gems and potions as you can, waiting for this to come out. If you're a higher level player, or if you're a player that's capable of doing 100 to 200,000 damage a run, having as many attempts as possible is going to help your guild to get that full clear. It's going to be really difficult for any guilds to clear this without at least a few players spending some gems here and there. I will say with 10 days, you'll see the top 2 or 3 guilds tend to rush against each other super fast and get a little geeked up about fighting this and not taking things slow and day by day. Ideally, in a perfect world, if you're not chasing for the guild leaderboard rewards and you're just trying to defeat the boss efficiently and effectively, you want to take up until the 8th day or 7th day to clear the first 7 to 8, 9 stages, and then decide if you need people to start going hardcore on gems and things like that. And historically, from what I've seen, the dragon seems like it's always going to start on a gold sale weekend and end on a gem weekend. It's never going to start with gems on sale during the first week of the event. And that may change, but so far where it's been falling, that's not been the precedent. So again, there's something to be said for waiting for the second week and waiting for the gem sale to come up and being patient. Now, with this attempt at the Valkyrie, we're going to try the dragon resistant lightning are 2 damage types of the Valkyrie. Now, if she gets herself killed right off the bat, I don't know how much that'll help us, but if she can start to get some invigors and stacks of Shield of Wrath up, she should be able to put up some decent damage numbers. The real question is going to be how well she can survive through the Eat Your Soul and Endless Pain cycles. I've noticed the dragon's been super dodgy, though. Personal favorite overall, of course, would have to be the Blackguard team, simply for its effectiveness. I do enjoy using the Valkyrie, especially on the early stages. As you know, Valkyrie's my favorite hero. But yeah, in terms of best team, the Blackguard team is the most effective by far. Now, I do eventually want to get one of those tier 2 light staffs, which I know a few players are running, and it's not a huge damage increase for the Druid, but it is somewhat noticeable over the Thunder Staff or Rod of Ruin. And unfortunately, due to the competitive nature of the event, I don't know how much experimenting people will really do in terms of trying new teams and trying to figure out other things that work. I've had a few ideas about maybe trying to use the Paladin and the defense boosts available to just try and survive through the endless pains and things like that, as opposed to just stun locking the boss. Of course, you typically want to try and cast Melt Armor after Shield of Wrath, unlike I just did there. Oh, she doesn't seem to be doing too terribly this run. Again, her damage just isn't nearly as good as the Monk or the Blackguard, it seems. However, we'll keep putting up these buffs and try and survive and get the best run out of her possible. Now, losing so many Invigors, again, it's just a real pain in the ass. I don't really see the justification for such a significant change to the ability. It should have, in my opinion, have been just fixed from the broken double Invigors and left alone from there. But it is what it is. We gotta deal with the hands we are dealt and try and do the best we can. Absolutely, I'll make sure I'll show the damage there for the Valkyrie, but you're right to remind me, because I tend to forget everything. Yeah, we'll go ahead and drop that Rage Potion onto the Valkyrie here, too, with this attack cycle coming up, and see how she does. Oh, a dodge. Awesome. Dick. Does seem like she doesn't rely quite as much on the Battle Fury and Curse and whatnot to do decent damage. Yeah, Monk, especially if you have a high-level fist, can be pretty good. It's all about the Invigors, though, man. I mean, in my opinion, the War Master up front is just really unrivaled because of how well Call to Arms works. It's just, especially at later stages, it takes, like, max stats. I mean, even in the previous cycles, Beatific was running almost an identical War Master to me, but, like, maybe 80 or 100 defense less, and he was dying on almost every attack. So again, it really takes the potions and the max stats and all the, 7 stars to survive with the War Master tank on real late stages. So that's part of where the Monk can come in handy, is he doesn't need to be 100% balls out like that to be somewhat survivable. And a bit of that's going to fall on the player end. But you see, with the Valkyrie here, she did 130,000, and she had a death and, a few hiccups along the way. She's probably capable of hitting a bit higher, maybe even up into the 200,000 range. But again, it's going to be a lot less consistent than the War Master up front and the Blackguard in the rear. Now, one thing I'll say is I personally have run so many of these fights, gem refreshing and trying to lead the charge and help my guild out and whatnot. But when you do something that many times, you tend to just memorize what the potential outcomes are going to be. It's almost like playing cards, where there's just so many things that can happen, and you eventually start to see things before they happen. And although there's a little bit of variation, Pause for loading. But again, as there is a little bit of variation, the more you run this, the more familiar you get. Gonna be. Yeah, I want to see 3 times, and I need to get some points. Oh, you prick. See, that's what I hate, is when you have to burn that early potion to try and save the run at all. The one upside there is it'll let us cast Invigor on the Witch. And as you see, that puts up the Hex and Curse right away. The Hex is going to be our powerhouse here for keeping the dragon stunned, but that double Curse is what's going to lead us to the Blackguard damage output that we're really looking for. We'll drop one more on the Witch, just say, give it a try, see if we don't get screwed. Now, I've had a few players suggest to me stunning the dragon with Soul Rend every time he comes unstunned. Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the best tier 2 images that fits with a skin and fits with a particular hero. I personally think it looks goofy as hell on like the swashbuckler and the pirate and stuff. But again, Endless Pain, as soon as it comes up, shield tactics, rapid regen, drop the renewal. Thanks, Chris. You know, I appreciate you letting me know that too, because I rewatched a few of my old streams and noticed a ton of places where it gets all laggy like that. Soon AT&T will be done installing fiber internet in our neighborhood, and I'll be able to get like I think it's like 150 megs up that comes with the gigabyte service. And then I will stream like a man. Yeah, no, it's definitely not your internet. It's just my terrible upload speed. Oh no, son of a bitch! And now that is what you call a wiped run. We didn't get a chance to stun the dragon or drop rapid regen or even expect that he would kill the damn War Master in that situation right there. So I'm going to just boost it into double speed, start spamming soul skills, and try and do as much as we can before we get killed. But you'll see that once you lose the synergy of these 4 heroes together, the damage from double swing drops to almost nothing. It's amazing how much of a difference Battle Fury and Curse can make. Those percentage-based numbers are always going to be the ones that can potentially get really big. But, you know, we go from doing 20,000 on a double swing to doing 600. And you'll see there with the wiped run, I mean, he comes in right around the same as the Valkyrie came in, 136,000. So, of course, the Druid changes have taken away a lot of that ability to do, like I said, 350 to 500,000 damage runs, which, I mean, I understand why they did it. The Ninja Kiwi doesn't want a boss out there that you can just kill by yourself, although I still contest that with enough gems I could kill this boss by myself. It just take a little while. It's the final stages, really, too, that are the biggest pain in the ass when you get into stages and and let's not get hit by the cage of bones. But yeah, like I said, in those 9 and 10 stages where you see that Eat Your Soul crit took him down to like a quarter HP, even with the max gear on him, sometimes it'll just one-shot him. Critical hit killed right away. And then if the Cage of Bones hits the Witch or the Druid for a crit, you get 2 heroes down in 5 seconds. So it really does make the fight fairly challenging at the later stages. So we'll see how it goes with the invigor changes. Part of the upside previously was that if you did lose a run, you could potentially end up with 2 dodges and end up with a 400,000 damage run or something. And with that removed, it's going to be a lower average damage over the course of 20 or 30 attacks. And I mean, in terms of like future planning and whatnot, especially for like web guilds and people who aren't quite to the point where they can defeat the dragon, I absolutely suggest that you check out the checklist that I mentioned on the Tower Keepers Headquarters Discord. Um, Having all these heroes at 7 stars, having some of this equipment, even the lesser versions of the equipment, whether it be the tier 1s and things like that, having about 3,000 gems going into the fight, having about 10 of each potion going into the fight. If you have a guild of 30 players that are in that range, 40 players in that range, most of you guys aren't even going to have to burn a bunch of your gems to be able to take the dragon out fairly easily. Um, and that's the real upside that all lower level players are going to have, is that all the 55s and whatnot, when this first came out, we're just shooting in the dark trying to figure out stuff that worked. Luckily, we stumbled upon this witch build that really has been fairly effective for these higher level guilds to clear this. But even then, in the top 2 or 3 guilds, I'd say 80 or 90% of the damage is usually going to be focused at the top 8 players, top 10 players, sometimes even fewer. Um, so again, if you have a guild of all higher level players, oh, and of course, let's cast shield tactics before purge because we're talking and not paying attention. Oh well. Um, but yeah, if you've got 30 players, 40 players that are all on the same page and all prepared, you guys are going to tear through the dragon like it's nobody's business. For 4 or 5 star level heroes on the lower stage dragons, you're gonna probably want to use a combination of the thief, the knight, the druid, and the war master if you have them available to you. In which case you put the knight up front with his stun ability, punish, and cast your invigors on him. Which, as soon as we finish up this one, we'll set it up for you. No. If I quit, I'm just going to get killed, jacked. I might as well just kill him. Just go. If you're in Elysium, join right now and fight him. In fact, I can even pause for a minute. In fact, I don't even think he's going to die this time around. I'm probably going to have to go in again. Alright, if you want to try and go in and get the kill shots, now is the time, but I'm probably going to have to join a second fight. I'm probably actually going to lose it because of this. Can I just pause it and wait for someone else to go in and kill it? Will its damage update like that? Don't break free, you wanker. Oh, so close. That's a pain in the pee pants. Well, we see this is a 260k run, but we want to try and get in as soon as possible. I got 13k off that, so I think that's like a partial kill shot thing that was added because I've never gotten 13,000 gold from him before. But we got in just in time. So we got 13k, and hopefully we'll get another fat reward. If you're in Elysium, or if you're in Elysium watching this, Should probably tell everyone to go in as fast as possible for the kill shot. I'll pause it in here for a sec. Again, yeah, if you're watching this, let the Elysium folks know if they want to try and get a kill shot. Now's the time. I'll leave it paused for just a moment here. I'd go in and do it myself, but while I'm streaming, I'm using up so much RAM, it'll close my game if I close my window. And sorry to the rest of you who are watching. We'll give it just a moment here. And we will go. Yeah, of course, the dodgy prick had to dodge my soul rend, get my War Master killed. The damn wanker. Now it's unfortunate. He's gonna die in a second here, and that's gonna end this run. So, what could have been 200,000 damage contributed to my guild total is gonna end up being 8,000 because I'm greedy and I wanted the kill shot reward. If you get it to, if it were to roll over, I think that would be a lot more effective. But I understand that the stats and shit have to reload to create the upgraded monster. But as you can see there, the kill shot reward is a chunk of gold and guild marks. Now I rushed into that one. In a perfect world, in a perfect guild, what you would do is get it down to about 5,000 health. Go in with the Thief and the Cleric, the Blackguard and the War Master, some combination of 2 gold boosters and enough DPS to deal that last 5,000 damage in 300 seconds. And try and get as much of a boost as possible, especially on the stages 8, 9, and 10. I mean, you can get 100,000 gold in one run. Why not, if you can? And especially if you get 30 guild members in there, the guild marks combined is going to be absolutely worth it to spread it to everybody possible. So again, if you're in a lower level guild, if you're in a higher level guild, you want to try and coordinate as many kill shots as possible. I will tell you, it's harder than you think. People are impatient. Not every player in a guild is communicating at the same time together. So it's always going to be difficult to try and get things lined up and situated for a kill shot, but you always want to try and do your best to do so. And as you see, we get some of those boosters and some golden portal stones for the stage 7. And the stage 8 and stage 9 here have a mix of some more of these weapon boosters. As you see, we got some of them here as well. Yeah, I mean, in all of the top guilds in the last run through, I mean, there were a ton of people who hijacked kill shots inadvertently. They weren't paying attention, whatever the case may be. We'll have a look here, at these abilities, which is something we haven't done. In between levels, the things that increase the most really are these passives and the base damage numbers on the first 4 abilities here. You see there's this ability too, the Wave of Death. I've only seen it one time, I want to say. This is an ability that basically goes off towards the end of the battle. If we weren't using these stun lock builds and the things that we were using, players would see this Wave of Death a lot more often. But fortunately, the way things are set up, we haven't been running into it too much. So that's really cool, because 8 to 15,000 damage, it's pretty much an instant one-shot for your whole team. But we'll jump in and do a battle or two here on 8. I do want to get into showing how to do some of these more difficult tower floors and stuff, but I'm going to need to take a short break here after we get this one done. And of course, I appreciate everybody coming in and checking out our videos and watching us battle against this son of a bitch. I know a lot of lower level players are struggling with him. Unfortunately, he is just so incredibly mighty that there's going to be some certain benchmarks that you just have to hit before you can really battle with him. Now, with the initiative fixes, it does look like you can stun away that Cage of Bones very often, which is going to make this fight a hell of a lot easier. It's important to note that if you're an experienced dragon fighter and you're watching this, that's something that you really want to keep in mind, is that if you can soul rend before that first Cage of Bones and get that hex to go off, it's going to push it into the next cycle when you can cast shield tactics and whatnot to survive through it. And that was a pretty nice 30,000 damage crit that the Blackguard pulled off. His damage is doing pretty well for us. Now, we did push that Cage of Bones down into the second cycle here. The Druid dodges it like a boss. And the Refreshing Brew from the Witch, even without the boost to it from her passive, is just such a tremendous heal. Yeah, I always love when heroes like the Druid, who have no dodge at all, dodge shit. It's very enjoyable for me. Blackguard's a man on a mission right now, though. Yeah, well, absolutely, actually. I know a number of players who have the Wand of Swiftness and the Code of Quickening build. It almost guarantees only one cycle to go off from the boss. It's really awesome. Unfortunately, it's a random reward, and having completed both Gold Dragon Horde events, I unfortunately have not yielded one yet. But I do know of at least 2 level 55 high geared players that have them. And yeah, absolutely. I'm with the double and vigor, man. I used to see double 22k crits. But use both damage passives, the deadliness and find weakness. At the end of this battle, I'll jump in and have another look at the skills real quick. So many dodges, though. I feel like the dragon's dodge percentage got upped, man. Earlier, before I was streaming, I swear he dodged every soul rend I threw for like an hour straight. Well, this seems to be a fairly clean run so far. A couple good crits. Should be in the 200,000 damage range easily. It's just the dodges, like I said, a real pain in the ass. Especially when you'll dodge both double swings and stuff like that. But Flannel, if you're still watching, I hope that some of this stuff helps you out, man. You really should be able to do pretty big damage numbers with the heroes that you have. It's just a matter of being intimate with the cycles and having a good grasp on what's going to be coming your way. And like you'll see here, we have 25 seconds left, so I'm not going to bother casting Rapid Regeneration. It's just going to eat away at my chance to get a double swing in. And if you need any more help, Flannel, too, like just feel free to message me. I can try and walk you through it. I can even make you a private video on the monked builds and stuff like that. But let's have a look. There's 259. what, 263,000, 261,000. So that's one of my better runs so far, actually. Blackguard was a man on a mission. Um, yes. Me and Flannel Mess will get intimate with a good grasp any day. He's got that. Unfortunately, this isn't quite as difficult as I thought it would be after the update. Hey man, if people want to forfeit against you, that's their call. Free wins, prestige for us. It's a win-win. Um, but yeah, I was really afraid that after the 1.92 update, that the dragon would be damn near undefeatable. I really got the feeling that the folks at Ninja Kiwi weren't terribly happy that the top two guilds defeated it so easily the first time around, and even cleared through the first 9 stages in a 3-day cycle. The second time they put it up inadvertently. So I really did expect not only a few nerfs to these heroes, but a massive boost to the dragon, and it does seem like things are fairly similar to what they were before, other than that ability to throw those massive damage runs from the double in vigor. Now, of course, this has affected some other builds, like the knight or the thief build that we talked about earlier, which is of course unfortunate for lower level players who don't quite have access to the higher level War Master build right now. But as we saw, the monk did fairly well, the Valkyrie did fairly well, and I will do my best to try and seek out other builds and other potential strategies that are yet undiscovered. I do think that there might be something that you can do with a mix of the King Hammer boosts from the Paladin and the War Master, whether it be maybe dropping the Witch and trying to outlive some of that stuff, or maybe even dropping the Druid with the weaker and vigor now and running the Witch in tandem with someone like the Paladin. Because when we were running the Valkyrie up front and not really landing the Invigors on the War Master or Witch too much, it did seem like they still managed to keep the boss fairly well stunned. So, if that means that you can put another damage booster in or a defense booster in lieu of the Druid, and just sacrifice your access to that rapid regen in lieu of some better defense and the heal from the refreshing brew. Again, there might be some stuff out there that just hasn't been discovered yet. Nope. Druid, War Master, Thief, Knight. And in that build, you would want to put your Knight up front. You want to put the Stun, the Parry, and the Sunder. You do not want the Taunt on him. For the passives, you want to go with Defense and either Armor or Health. You want to drop all your Invigors on the Knight. You want to run your Thief with both damage passives, Cheap Shot, Backstab, and Envenom. I have heard from some players that Flanking Strike eventually becomes more viable than Envenom, and also without the Invigor on the Thief, the Flanking Strike might be a little better than Envenom. So I'd suggest you try both Envenom and Flanking Strike and decide which one works better for you. And yeah, from most of what I've heard, Defense and Health is the better setup for the Knight. I do have a little bit lower level alt that I wanted to try and figure out some stuff that might work for the first 4 or 5 stages for players in the 30s and whatnot. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do that in the 10 days that the boss is up. But you'll see here with this particular Blackguard team, you see me go AFK a lot, so to speak, where I'm not really touching any soul skills or anything. Casting the Soul Rend every time the boss gets unstunned can potentially slow him to the point of you only taking 1 or 2,000 damage received on all your heroes. I personally think that it disrupts your potential damage output, so I tend to not go that route because Soul Rend always just hits so low for me. And then you'll find some instances like right now where I know that it's going to just be 1 extra attack, so I throw it off anyways. Although I think I just lost a damn Death Glare because of it. Or a double swing. Oh, no, almost got it. But again, you know, it's a 200,000 average build. Some of the higher level players have pushed it a little higher than that. But we're going to take a little bit of a break here from the dragon stuff. I'm going to take a little bit of a break and go offline here for a moment. We'll come back in a few and check out some tower attacks and some tower defense and things like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at the guild boss. We will try and get in on some of the later stages and whatnot and look at the 9th and 10th stages. We'll cover opening the epic chests and the rewards and all that cool stuff. So if you haven't already, if you're a new viewer here, make sure you subscribe to the Keeper's Corner. Check out our old streams. Check out our other videos. Anything you want to see, make sure you drop any comments. You're them shop notifs. There's nothing. It's the chests. It's boobies. Nope, scam daily deals. If you're a web player, a new player, make sure you always calculate what you're getting in a daily deal and if it's an actual deal or not, because some of them are just downright scams. Really, the only daily deals I would ever buy are the ones that have void cores in them, and even some of those are pretty damn steep and pretty ridiculous. But like I said, guys, I'm going to take a break for this one, so I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, if you have any more questions about the dragon or anything else, you can always catch me on the Tower Keepers Headquarters Discord. Again, just Google TKHQ Discord or Tower Keepers Discord. Find the link to that Discord server, and you can private message me, Sonial, and I'll always be there to help you guys out and answer your questions, and we will catch you guys in a little bit with some tower attacks.